I think that's better. With the light off to the side, it's better than the one right behind you.
So anyway, I kind of wanted to do this for a good 9 years. It's kind of waiting for an opportunity. And it was, I saw that video of David Bohm, and when I saw that, it kind of, reminded me of a George Gershner, and what kind of got me, what was that David's wife, read this book from Krishnamurti. And in that book, Krishnamurti, he was a famous guy in probably 30s, 40s, 50s. And anyway, she read that book, and she talked about him, looking at the observer and the observed. And then she says, to her husband David, hey David, that's what you're a physicist. That's what you do. So but one was internal and one was external. And anyway, to make a long story short, David and Krishnamurti became, friends, and a couple of times a year, they would dialogue with each other. So both, kind of gain wisdom from each other.
But not using Zoom, right?
Yeah, not using, no Zoom back then, no. and also, the Dalai Lama became good friends with David Bohm. And one reason for that, the Dalai Lama is kind of pragmatic, in terms of he loves science, and he says, if when science proves what I feel is wrong, then I'm going to embrace science. Because it's always, life is always learning, isn't it? You can never clap your hands and say, oh, okay, I learned everything. So. What I kind of wanted to gain forces, I know in my eyes, you're a genius when it comes to physics. You're not a physicist per se, but
not every branch of physics.
Yeah. But I remember I thought that was kind of funny because I asked you a question once. I said, George, how come you're not into physics? So you went to the computer, did a Google search. I'll show you why. And I remember, I think we found one job in the United States in your field. Yeah. One job. And then you said, well, I'll show you why I'm a software engineer. Typed in your parameters, C#, and there's literally thousands of jobs.
Yeah. I tell everybody when they ask me why did you go into physics, I told them I don't think I wanted to work in Starbucks for that long anyway. So.
But one thing I do notice, I read this book, The Tao of Physics, in the 70s. It was by a physicist. I forgot exactly what his name was, but he was doing passages from the Chinese, Tao, and the modern day physicists, granted that this was back in the 70s, and you really couldn't tell the difference between one or the other. So, I don't think, I remember last time I talked to you and you said, well, sometimes I read your stuff and it's kind of like, fairy tales. I mean, that's what I said, fairy tales. but one thing I wanted to say that, there's two labs, isn't there? There's an external lab and an internal lab. And I spent, it was maybe almost 49 years on the internal lab, and you spent most of your life just especially in the world of physics, an external lab. Now a lot of your answers, I think, for physics comes from the internal, right? I mean, and don't you think?
Define what you mean by internal versus external.
Okay, external. Right now, I'm looking to you. That's external, right? Anything outside in our physical senses is external.
Okay.
Okay. internal. So watch me, close my eyes.
Uh-huh.
That's internal. So there's two, ways of kind of perceiving reality. I still think, okay, let's say the quantum field has always existed, correct? But it wasn't until maybe 120 years ago did scientists actually started talking about that.
I think quantum mechanics as a study started around 1901, 1902, somewhere in the beginning of the 20th century.
Okay, yeah.
Around the same time that relativity started. It's kind of one of the newer fields of physics, because if you think about it, physics is literally thousands and thousands of years old. So by comparison, quantum and relativity are new areas of physics.
Okay. Now, so, and right now, so we have all those concepts. We kind of know that matter is kind of secondary. There's energy behind it, right?
That gets complicated. I don't know if I should get all scientific on you right now, but
yeah, I mean, not yet. Well, how about this? We are still living with Newtonian principles when there's a science, don't you think?
Well, we're seeing things in Newtonian ways, because to see it in any other way, you have to either be moving really fast, like the closest speed of light, or be really small, where you're now seeing fundamental particles, the actual size of them, which you really can't see them, because to see anything, you're getting an influx of photons, and not every particle gives you photons. And if you have one electron, you try to see the one electron. And if it shoots you one photon, it's like getting shot in the head, and then hoping that you knew what the gun looked like from just that. I mean, that really doesn't help a whole lot, So
now, what the mystics say and experience is that but there's a light that exists inside. When I first started meditating, I thought there was this light was a heavenly realm. But the more I kind of look at it, see, when I close my eyes, automatically now I'm entering. This is what I want to talk to you about. I'm entering this force field that's not physical at all. There's a light inside, that the human body is wired for. And mystics have been talking about that for literally for thousands of years. So what, and inside that there is a frequency, a vibration that here's one question I got for you.
Light might be a misnomer for what you're probably describing, because when you say the word light, to me, I'm literally thinking a flow of photons, which is probably not anywhere near what you're talking about. You're talking about like an insight, an insightful feeling, or I don't know. So it's not necessarily made of photons, but something else. Well, that you're like a I don't know, vision. I don't have a word for it really.
The closest I can get is when I see like pictures at that collider in Geneva. That super collider, that you can actually see a physical representation of what's happening. So that same light from that, whatever that collider is called, is that same light that a person sees inside. See, the thing is, I personally, I don't think people can see outside the box. There is, the human body is wired for that experience. What I'm seeing as a light is just as clear as the average person sees in this world, light. But there's Yeah, I know it sounds bizarre, but I really think that the human body was wired, to be in tune with the quantum field. That is my, and that's what, David Bohm, he was a hardcore a scientist, and then he met Krishnamurti, and over 25 plus years they carried on their a dialogue. And so well, anyway, it's how do I say it? In order to it's kind of tough, even in terms, if you describe the beyond the fourth dimension, and talk about other dimensions, that the human brain backfire, right? It just can't compute it. Scientists, you guys do it, through math. You actually proved, there's different dimensions. But I've read, like thousands of mystical books and probably hundreds of articles with scientists, like the Tibetans every year, the Dalai Lama gets the top, scientists around the world, and they discuss, the latest scientific knowledge and how it leads, for a human being to understand and experience it. The most important is experience it. Here's something. Okay, we have a dear friend. I don't need to name any names. Okay, so he has a certain perspective, and he can't think outside of the box. So imagine this. Anytime anybody gets angry, what happens is that, a Buddhist says, when you get angry, you're drinking your own poison. Well, lo and behold, in the last 15 years, scientists have studied when you get angry, basically stress hormones gets released into the human body. When that happens,
your body, when you get angry, okay, I'm going to think in animal terms here. When you get angry, yeah. And I'm probably going to get it wrong because I'm not a biologist, but I'm going to guesstimate. When an animal gets angry, and we're included in that group, at let's say another animal, another creature, it needs to prepare to fight it.
Correct.
To prepare to fight it, you're going to need certain hormones to like pump up your energy or prepare your muscles or whatever it takes to become more aggressive than your opponent, because you're planning to get mean to it. Humans are smart. We won't act on it just because we get the feelings, but that doesn't mean we may have evolved out of actually attacking each other when we get angry, but that doesn't mean we've evolved out of actually getting angry. We still get angry. I won't hit you over the head over it, but all that flush just gets in your body. And of course it's not good for you. I mean, these are chemicals that are meant to, I don't know, if you go to like a computer, for example, there's a way to set the CPU. You're supposed to set the CPU to run at a certain speed, that the way they designed it at Intel. But you can overclock it. You've heard the term overclock?
Yeah. Yeah.
Basically, you're telling the CPU to run faster than it was designed to so that you can get more power out of it. Well, it probably comes as no surprises. That's probably not good for the CPU to do long term, because you'll just overheat it. That's the same for the human body, or any animals is designed for a certain state, and then every once in a while you got to make an exception and go crazy.
Mm-hmm.
But if you do that too often, you're just basically using nitro too often, and you're just gonna kill the gas tank.
Yeah.
And like you said, poison.
Mm-hmm. And so what I've seen, basically, I think that's the present condition of this world. Mm-hmm. There's certain topics, you mentioned it, and it's, a bonfire. Mm-hmm. And in that state of a bonfire, one can't see clearly. One can't mm-hmm. think, you can't use discrimination nor wisdom. There's a word called obstification. You know what that word is? Obstification.
I've heard it before, but I've never used it in a sentence.
Okay,
Go for it.
obstification is a point of reference where you can never change, nor do you ever want to be willing to change. You hold on to your belief system so much that even if practical advice and reasoning comes your way, you won't be able to see it.
That makes sense. I know people. There's probably a certain person in mind that we're thinking of, but I know people who get into that mindset, and if you tell them something that contradicts, no, I'm sorry, gravity pulls things down. They'll just, in order to keep their core belief from fracturing, they'll just assume what you said is actually wrong. Not only is it not, I won't accept it, but it's just, you're wrong. Gravity doesn't just go down, it goes up. It never goes down, because otherwise it would conflict with what I'm trying not to change my mind on. Right? Does that make sense?
Yeah.
That probably describes everyone you've ever encountered that has that situation, I guess.
But now, going back to the light, see, years ago, let's say before I started meditating, I always thought it was kind of like metaphoric, people, or image or a vision. But personally, I think, here's one thing I could say. Okay, when you were born, what was the very first thing a baby does? Very first thing.
Breathe, probably.
Right. Yeah. You breathe in. Okay. Yeah. So we agree with that, don't we? Okay. Years later, let's say you're on your deathbed. What's the last action that one takes?
Probably thinking. I'm gonna go with thinking. You're
not
dead. You're not dead until your brain stops functioning.
Yeah. And how about you take your last breath?
Sure.
Okay.
I mean, I could get technical though. You might not because if you look at each individual cell in the human body, technically they're all living organisms.
Correct.
Evolutionarily speaking, cells basically got together and said, hey, let's all join together and we can be more successful if we join forces and become one multicellular organism. So it's like a country instead of a bunch of individuals. So when it comes to death, it's possible, like, let's say your brain dies, but your heart's still going, or your arms are still there. I mean, they don't all die at once. Certain parts will start failing, and so your fingers may still be alive, your hair may be doing okay, but your brain is gone, or your heart's gone, or your tongue's whatever parts. So I mean, if you individually, every single last cell in your body's got to go before you're officially completely dead, and that could take however long it takes to decompose. So you could literally, I don't know, but officially, legally, I guess I like to count it as when the brain goes.
Okay. So yeah. So we're definitely on the same wavelength on that. So what I personally think. So there's almost so there's a source and an energy that behind our breath that is keeping us alive. Right? I mean, basically
the brain's telling the lungs to keep going. Okay, breathe. Okay, take another breath. Okay, wait a second. Now take another breath. And you it's basically ordering the body, the breathing to it's regulating it. It's not the part that's conscious, because if you had to think about this all day long, you're gonna forget to breathe. It's the subconscious internal, the back engine, I guess, that is sort of automating the process. But it's still your brain telling it to do it. And that's like the government. If the brain shuts down, it's eventually going to stop giving orders, and the lung will say, I haven't heard you tell me to take another breath yet, so I'm just going to hold until you say so. And after a while, that kills the rest of the body. That's why you gradually die instead of all at once. You know, you don't get commands, which doesn't tell your heart stops pumping. You start breathing, and when your heart stops pumping, the blood no longer circulates, and now the cells further down. They're like, they don't know anything about the brain. They just know about the blood that they're getting from the heart. So they start dying. Anything that was dependent on those cells will then in turn start. It's like a cascade over time. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes total sense. Now, how about, I know I love giving you definitions because you give good ones back. A tuning fork. Tell me about a tuning fork.
It's specifically shaped so that when you get it to cause a vibration, it will vibrate at a certain frequency. The longer they are, the shorter, the longer the frequency. I don't remember the math behind it, but I'm sure a Google search will easily figure that out. But basically, if you want different frequencies, you just have different size tuning forks.
Okay. All right. Yeah, but that's I like that one. Yeah.
And I'm sure you're going to bring up the word resonant frequency.
Yeah. Yeah. Well. Here's one. So the mystics believe that the mind is a tuning fork which can connect consciously behind the breath. I think, humanity, let's put it this way, 95% of our actions probably come from our subconscious, while only 5% is conscious. By the time,
probably a decent estimate. Sure.
Yeah. So for me, I kind of see that humanity is like leaves blowing in the wind. We are reactive beings. I say something that pisses you off, you're going to say something that pisses me off. That's kind of, especially in this present day moment with this, a corona, science. I mean, I think people are getting divorced from science and from nature in terms. It should be common sense, folks. Wear a fucking mask. Come on. There should be no debate. Social distancing. We should listen to.
Side note. I don't know if you've seen the Facebook post. It was a hilarious joke. It had Trump and Pence standing next to each other, and Pence had the mask over his nose and not, the usual mask.
Yeah.
And Trump had just the Zorro. Yeah, and then on the caption on the bottom says someone should have been more specific which kind of mask to wear.
Oh my god!
I thought that was hilarious.
That was funny. That's a good one. But so what personally, I think humanity, because we're really not conscious of the power behind the breath, which is once again, it is a tuning fork. Have you ever tried, just for an experiment, for let's say 5 minutes, to close your eyes and focus on your breath? And you either put on headphones or put on earplugs.
Actually, I have, and it is super annoying.
It's super annoying.
It is, well, because I prefer not worrying about it. And then can you imagine constantly having to tell yourself, because it's not like the heart, the lungs are not like the heart. The heart, your brain's telling your heart to pump. You can't tell your heart, go a little faster, go a little slower, or skip this step or whatever. Basically, it's completely automated. But the lungs are like, I don't know, the semi-automatic, is that the right word?
Yeah.
You can tell the lungs, you can override the back end command and tell it, okay, even though the back end told you to take a breath, I actually want you to hold it right now. And now I want you to take 2 quick breaths. That's why that's the whole reason why the doctor can tell you take a deep breath in the doctor's office, and you can actually take the deep breath when he wants it. And instead of saying, you never hear the doctor say, okay, take a pulse. I'm sorry, it's happening. I can't not
Yeah.
take it false otherwise. It's like I have no choice in the matter. But imagine how annoying it would be if you spent it was basically all day long. Okay, out, in, out. And then you hear your breath in, out. And you're like, I don't know, after a while it gets super annoying, especially if you hear someone else's breathing. Then you start to, all right, should I time it so that I'm breathing in when he's breathing in and breathe out when he's breathing out? Or should I time it so that I'm out while he's in? Or should I do it like halfway, so where I'm halfway done with my in versus his halfway going out? He's like, you know what? I don't have time to think about this.
Yeah.
You start going crazy over this. So, like if you're trying to take a nap and someone's snoring beside you, you hear the breathing. Snoring is just loud breathing.
Mm-hmm.
And then you can't help but synchronize your breath to their breath. And now you're thinking about your stupid breath. It basically, you can't help but not control it manually. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Well,
I don't know if your wife complains about you
my
snoring.
experience
But
is that when I breathe, it's not boring at all. The thing that is boring is
I don't mean boring. I don't mean boring. Is annoying.
well,
when you have to basically focus on the timing, especially when another person's breathing is audible in the area.
yeah,
If I was to breathe heavy right now, you would, to the point where you could hear it. After a while, your brain's going to be, should I breathe in? Should I inhale while he's inhaling? And you're going to start doing it. And then you're going to be conscious of the fact that you're doing it. And then you're no longer going to let your brain automate this. Now you're worrying about it yourself.
yeah. Well,
I can almost control your breathing by just breathing heavy, because then you won't have any choice but to listen. And then you'll be like, and you'll be like, okay, fine, I'm doing it too.
yeah.
It could get
that's why I brought up the tuning fork.
Mm-hmm.
That the mind can there's a frequency behind your breath, which I call the quantum field. That's what that's what I call it. And basically the quantum field exists everywhere, doesn't it? It doesn't. It's okay. Oh, there's Richard Fletcher. I'm not gonna. Yeah, I'm a bypass. It exists everywhere, doesn't it?
Okay.
So mystics have been saying literally for thousands of years, that the whole universe is breathing. They've, that, who knows, hasn't been proven, but we know that human beings breathe. We know, that behind the breath, there's a power that is keeping us alive. So over a period of time, here's my viewpoint.
Okay.
You start.
Can I throw some wrinkles?
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
Okay, I'm gonna throw in my astrobiology, because I told you I'm into astrophysics lately.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so question number one: why humans? You're saying the universe's breathing is comparable to humans breathing. So why'd you choose humans, as opposed to, say, a plant, which is not necessarily taking breath? It is breathing, but it's not doing it by breaths.
That's aware.
That's item number one. Actually, trees, I'm not sure if they're aware. They don't have a nervous system.
How about, have you ever heard of panentheism? He was a scientist in the early 1920s, where his whole theory is the whole universe is alive. That's kind of like and live and conscious. That's kind of like my go-between. All
right, I'm gonna take the. Okay, I actually think I've heard of what you're talking about, where the universe is not just a bunch of pieces of junk floating around in space, but it's actually a living, breathing organism.
Exactly.
I think that's what you're getting at.
Yeah.
I'm gonna take the exact opposite.
Okay.
Idea, and instead of the universe being a living, breathing organism, it's actually, like I said, a bunch of junk floating in space that bounces against each other in mathematically predictable ways. Sure, but still, they're just bouncing around. Not only that, but we are too. We are just machines with CPUs that have been designed really well, but nonetheless, still just hardware with lots of neurons and stuff. And we're basically doing what we're programmed to do. You stick the middle finger at me, I'm going to get mad. Why? Because I've been programmed to. That's the way my brain works. Whether I'm conscious or not does not change the fact that I'm going to get mad. As far as I know, I may be the only conscious person on the planet, or maybe I'm not conscious and you are. Maybe none of us are conscious. Maybe none of us are actually alive. We're just all machines. If we were made of metal as opposed to carbon, would it really make a difference, right? You could throw in, okay, so we have this lifeless universe, even down to the creatures in it are we can consider lifeless, just organisms that move around on scientific principles. But then if you take, like, say, a deity, like we'll just say God, go in and sprinkle in some souls and stuff into some of his favorites, then you get some living, I'm going to put air quotes on that, living organisms. You have the non-living mechanisms walking around with something inside that means more than just that organism alone. Does that make sense? I'm getting spiritual. I'm getting spiritual. I've crossed the line from physics to spiritual when I threw in the deity, just so you know.
Yeah.
Okay. Science ends as soon as I started saying deity. Science doesn't ask the question, is there God? I don't know. People may disagree with me, but I'm not saying he does or doesn't exist. I happen to think he does, but science isn't in the business of asking. It's got other things to worry about first. Mm-hmm. So my point of view of the universe is we're actually just a bunch of chemicals made of different materials. Mm-hmm. Carbon works just as great, actually better than metal. So the reason why we're not androids and we're actually carbon-based beings is because it's actually more efficient, believe it or not. And there's more carbon than there is iron in the universe. This is true. But we're just we're just matter moving around, thinking we're doing it because that's what we want to do, when in fact that's just what we are programmed to do. We're interacting with each other. It seems like we're having a conversation, obviously, but I mean, the fact that I'm answering your questions and you're answering mine is because that's what we're programmed to do. You know?
Yeah.
No consciousness needed here, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, I can get two programmed. I get Alexa and Siri to have the exact same conversation. What would be different? Mm-hmm. Nothing. Yeah. Absolutely nothing. They may not be as enlightening when they do it, but you know, that's only a matter of time before they are. So I don't know. I may sound like an extreme weird case here, but I don't know.
No. You know, that's why I enjoy having these. You know, it's good to think outside our boxes. So,
and I almost forgot the whole reason I was bringing up the astrobiology. Astrobiology means the study of life on other planets. By the way.
Okay.
I don't know if you knew that, but it's a very interesting concept. Obviously, we don't have a whole lot to study because we have to find some first, right? But that doesn't mean we aren't prepared for it, just in case. There's a lot of assumptions we can make, like they have to be based on water. They might be based on carbon, but there are other alternatives. You know, there's a lot of things we can assume, but there's things we can't. Like, do they breathe? Do they have a heart? Do they even use DNA to sequence their structure? They may not use DNA. I mean, they may have a different coding system, right?
Yeah.
And I don't know. There's a lot of variety. So when I said that the human breathes, but the tree does, but not with inhale and exhale procedure. Okay, if you go to the alien life form, which doesn't even have to have breathing, it could take in its, I don't even know if it assuming it even needs a gas to be inputted into its body to function biologically, even if it needed that, how would it do it? It may not do it the way the tree does it, or even we do it, or it may have a totally different way of doing it.
And how about a being without form, formless?
Okay, so now we're getting all Star Trekky here.
Well,
I think all beings have a form. If you get into the energy being, I'm going to have to say, no, I don't believe that. Because then you're getting spiritual. If they're spiritual creatures, then maybe, yeah, but not. If we stop at the line of spiritual,
yeah,
below that.
In my eyes, George, you know, before I would say it's spiritual, and now I would say it's a being or awareness that's united with the quantum energy. You know, I'm you know, thinking in terms of now of where science is going and where we're looking, and see, that's another thing in terms when I meditate, I in a place that's beyond time and beyond a space. You know,
Okay, so I'm gonna interpret that. When you're meditating, you're probably closing your eyes. You're trying to clear your mind of other things, and then your mind starts to focus on something, and you're like, it's almost like you're deep in thought on one topic while you're cleaning your mind out of everything else. It's kind of the general concept of meditation. Am I wrong?
Yeah, you are. Oh, well, you know, no. for a lot of people, yes, but
that might be one form of it. But
okay, yes, but another form is you close your eyes and you enter the quantum field.
But what do you? If you don't use the word quantum, what exactly are you doing with your mind to get to that quantum field that you're talking about?
Okay, well, it's.
Are you focusing on what you're thinking about?
Okay. In the beginning, here okay. We'll go back 48 years. 48 years. I know
I'm being challenging, but
okay. 48 years. I would close my eyes, and I would see nothing but darkness. I started meditating, and so then it took me, let's say, an hour to connect to whatever you want to call it. So you met over the time, it builds and builds. So now I close my eyes and I'm automatically in that place. Automatically, I imagine going to a zone, or call it whatever you want, but it's pure light. It looks just like, you know, the particle things in Switzerland. You close my eye. Right now, I close my eyes, and there's thousands, you know, of lights that appear. The closest I could say are there's quarks, you know, particles, yeah, but whatever it is, I mean, that's why I'm kind of asking you as a physicist, what do you think that is? Because it is not a figure of imagination.
I'm probably going to break your heart, but okay. So first off, I think quantum fields, quantum mechanics is too small for the human brain, human body, anything at our level really to get down into and make use of. I mean, we can make use of electrons. We can move objects around, but when we push something around, we are pushing on their electrons by pushing other electrons, because every atom in our body is surrounded by electrons. So if you wanted to push a cup across the table or a hormone through your body, you're basically pushing it along by pushing other things up against it, and the electrons bump into each other and push them around. You're not getting past the electrons. And if you're not getting past the electrons, you're much less not getting through the nucleus in each of the particles. And you have to get all the way in just to start barely reaching quantum. Quantum is even smaller than that. And I don't think we're capable of getting that even with deep thought, because deep thought is still just electrical neurons passing through the brain.
Yeah, it's
Um,
beyond. So and
it
okay.
isn't. I'm not sure it's physically possible, and I'm totally forgot where I was headed with this.
What
But
then you know, theoretically, okay, let's take a look at present day physics. When a person
I'm sorry. I remember where I was going with this. Um, so that's part one. Part two, you said, okay, so what is it I'm seeing? Okay, so when you open your eyes and you see something, light comes in. Hopefully you can see my video here. Light, let's say I'm looking at this can.
yeah.
Light comes in from above, hits it, and then comes off and reflects back towards the eye. A photon hits it,
Mm-hmm.
and this is a Dr. Pepper can, so it's going to hit it. It could have been any. This photon has a wavelength. When it hits it, if the photon is not a red photon, it's going to keep the photon and probably scatter it in some random direction. But if it's a red one, it's going to bounce it, and that one will come into your eye. So that's why you see the red. It looks red to you because you're only getting the red photons. But it was hit by every color because I don't have red lights. So that photon comes in your eye. You get a flow of these photons, and you get it from every spot on the can. And it gets in your eye, gets focused on the back of the eye. The back of the eye feels the photons. And that's really the end. That's really, when it comes to light, that's the end of the story. The nerves in the back of the eyeball feel it. They sense it. And then they turn that into electrical circuits, into electricity. And they send that to the back of the brain. It's literally in the back of the brain, right through the center, right into the back of the brain. Signals to the back. It's almost like a projector back there. It's not really, because there's no light. Remember, the light ended at the back of the eye. So the signal comes in, and your brain reforms what the eye told it. It tries to reconstruct some three-dimensional concept, and it's not actually electrons in the shape of the can. It's just something that makes your brain remember that it's a can, but it's not actually electrons shaped like, the electrons are not shaped like this. It's just a random, if you look at it, it looks like a random flow of electrons in your head, but you're getting that. Now, close your eyes, okay, and imagine the can. You could put the can in the same spot in your brain, whether you're seeing it or not, right?
Yeah, right.
It's almost like you might as well call this a dream, or you're meditating on the can, but your brain can still replicate the concept of a can, whether it has the light or not. The light is just input, but now that you've seen the can, you can basically, you saved your input into the database of your brain, and you can just load it back up. Now it's just coming back from memory. So that's all you're seeing.
Then why do scientists say, that you have the pineal gland, and that's light sensitive,
What?
The pineal gland, the pineal gland, it's like a pine-shaped gland, that mystics have been talking about for at least 6,000 years. Scientists have recently, I've been studying it. They found
where is this gland located?
Oh, it's in the center of the brain. Do a search for pineal gland. You'll find thousands of articles on.
All right, so I gotta ask, what kicks it? What kick starts it?
What kick starts it?
Yeah, I mean, what is it? What is its function, and what
Its function is well. Let me give you a story. There's a guy named Bruce Lipton. He was a young biologist, probably in the 60s, and he was looking under a high-powered microscope, and he was looking at cells, and he saw that on each cell there's small antennas on the cells. So he was kind of wondering, what in the world is that for? He was a total atheist, didn't believe, just didn't believe in anything except for science. And then in 5 minutes, he began to think, okay, there is an antenna. And, back then you had TV with rabbit ears, and he thought, well, a TV with rabbit ear, it receives a signal, it gets broadcasted from, and it displays it on the TV. So his whole thing, it was a concept, is that inside our cells and our DNA, a person has, there's a signal which is being broadcast. Call it well, whatever you want to call it, but something, some intelligence, some wisdom is being broadcast. Now, when it comes to the pineal gland, do it, yeah, in your spare time. Do a lot of research on science and pineal gland, and you'll see what the mystics have been talking about for 6,000 years. Western medicine is now, taking a look at that and seeing, that they thought that pituitary gland, it's part of the endocrine system. So there's the pituitary, pineal, the thyroid gland, I'm sorry, the thymus. You got the solar plexus. There's about 7 different members of the endocrine system. So it's part of that system. And for animals, like some animals, they have 3 eyes. And for human beings, there's 2, but there's don't want to quote the scriptures, but they said, if thy eye be single, the whole body should be full of light. We hear that, but that same light that I'm talking about is that same light, that exists inside of all of us. I don't want to get religious about it, because it's not about religion, but that's why I'm so fascinated about science, because I see, scientists are talking about the exact same thing, different terminologies, but the gist, in my eyes, is one and the same.
I'll have to look up this gland you're talking about to understand what it's, how it interacts with the rest of the body and communicates. If it's a signal, okay, so I'm going to get all physics again, but if it's just picking up signals and that's the only way it communicates with the rest of the body, which I find weird, I'm sure there's more to it than that. But if that were it, anytime you have a flow of electrons or any charged particles moving, and this is just basic physics, a movement of charges, let's say moving in a line, causes, the fact that charges are moving equals magnetic field, right?
Okay.
So if you want a magnetic field, just make charges move and make them actually not just move, but they got to turn corners and stuff. So that's why solenoids are have the wire like so. So if it was just a straight line, it'd be a pretty weak magnetic field. But if it was a solenoid, you have a pretty strong one, because it's doing a lot of turns. Brain is a lot of circuitry, a lot of electrons flying back and forth. I find it hard to believe that there's going to be any magnetic field produced from that.
So here's what the closest I can get. Okay, a person sees the light hits the pineal gland. Pineal gland then secretes like hormones in the body.
Okay, wait.
Call it bliss. Call it happiness.
Time out. You said sees the light, but I'm gonna put quotes on light. Light does not get past the back of the eye. So the light you're talking about is probably not the light I'm thinking about.
I'm saying that the light's not physical. It doesn't have anything to do. Not physical.
Your light's it's not the one made of photons, that the classical physical light. It's more of a spiritual, mystic light, I guess.
What the closest that I can say, okay.
You almost need a new word for it,
Yeah.
A Fletcher.
Okay, there's physical light, all right? And then the closest thing that I've seen so far, I would call it the quantum light. I don't know what else to say it, but my personal experience is a person can connect to a light that is not physical. It's non-material.
Okay.
That and,
right.
and
more holes coming. More holes in the theory coming here. So you said quantum. When it comes to fundamental particles, when it comes to light, I'm gonna put that in air quotes again. It's just when charged particles interact with each other, when an electron wants to repel another electron, he basically says this electron tells this electron to go away with, it has to send a message to it. And the way that it sends a message is it shoots a photon over there. This photon basically hits and pushes him away. So the message is a photon, which is light. So light is the intermediary force particle, the particle that intermediates the force
Okay.
when it comes to charges. Now, when you go quantum, okay, light is not the only one. There's also now what I'm going to call light, I'm actually going to call it the electromagnetic force.
Okay.
But then there's also the strong nuclear force. Then there's the weak nuclear force.
Okay. Yeah.
And then there's the gravitational force. So you've got 4. None of those are the ones that you're thinking of, but 4. You only get 4 choices. Those 4. That's it.
Mm-hmm.
And the easiest to use is light, the photon one, the electromagnetic one. That's the easiest to use. The next easiest is probably gravity, only because it's so plentiful, but it's actually one of the weakest.
Mm-hmm.
The strongest of them all is ironically called the strong force. Sometimes they call that the hadronic force, and the weak force they'll call that the leptonic force.
Mm-hmm. So let's further divulge into this. So, you talk about when I open my eyes and I see light. So when I close, what's the difference between a person, let's say, who closes their eyes and they say utter darkness versus, let's say, a person closes their eyes and they enter a force field of light? I don't know what to say of it, but what,
I'm not sure you can close your eyes and not see anything. Because your mind, now that your mind is like not getting input from the eyes, it's gonna have to fill that silence.
Right.
It's gonna fill the silence with thoughts. It's gonna, after like a second or two, it's gonna be like, oh, did I forget to lock the door? Damn it, where did I park? Where are my car keys? You're gonna think of stupid things, but you're gonna think of something.
Yeah.
And you're like, wait, no, I'm trying to clear your mind. Yeah, have you seen that show Cars?
Oh yeah. No,
at the beginning, he's like, focus. I am speed. Remember that he's got his eyes closed and he's imagining, and he's like, and then you see him drift. It's like, I'm hungry, or it's like, no, wait. Yeah. That's the classic what people will think. Yeah.
So do you think, in my terms, let's say of meditating over the years, when I first started meditating, my mind was like, chattering all the time. It was like a mosquito bite.
Think of it as an electrical storm going on your neurons in your brain. You're having an electrical storm. Okay. That's all the noise that you're getting is an electrical storm.
So do you believe that then over the years, the mind chatter goes, where there's still chatter, but it's like a silent chattering of the mind?
That's when your brain learns to basically shut out the noise. Well, see, okay, so you have electrons flowing around in your head, going all nuts. If you're not thinking about things, your mind's just going to be like, if you turn on, remember, we're old enough to remember when you turn on a certain channel, you just get that black and white shh. Yeah, remember that? Exactly. Yeah, okay. Yeah. That's your brain when you're not thinking about anything. We have learned to, like, when you start to think about, let's say, I'm going to think about my can of Dr. Pepper here again. Suddenly, that wild stir is going to focus and visualize the can or think about the can. And in order to do that, I've got to sacrifice some of the electrical circuits that are going on for the just basic noise. I have to actually lower those and take those electrons and put it in for my focus. Mm-hmm. So not only does your thought, here's your brain not thinking of anything, now you're thinking about the can, but you actually have to lower the noise because you need to borrow some of that energy for the thinking of the can. Mm-hmm. Right? So your brain gets good at that. It helps concentrate, but it also, you probably, you need some of that random cloud to focus in on something. and that kills the cloud, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because that's what, let's say the mystics have said for thousands of years. The man, the hardest thing that it said the most difficult thing to control the universe is the human mind.
Mm-hmm.
And basically, our society right now is a perfect representation of that.
Sure.
Pretty much chaos. And yet, so in my eyes, if humanity learns how to stop the chatter, over time, then you could go into your subconscious and program your subconscious. The average state in America is high beta. High beta means you turn on the adrenaline switch and you can't turn it off. People are spending billions of dollars are trying to go to sleep because the mind's in high beta. You can't sleep until you go down from beta to alpha to theta and delta. Once you're in that, melatonin.
We have been programmed from birth that you need to keep moving to succeed. And then when you get older and your time to relax, you can't because you haven't been trained how to relax.
Yeah, exactly.
You've trained. You are not born with the beta mode that you're talking about. You've been programmed to improve it to the point where you have never learned. You have sacrificed learning otherwise, and now you don't know how to do otherwise.
Well,
That's just. I mean, that's programming.
Well. And yeah, that's definitely programming. But I know that meditate.
It's actually harder than programming because at least in programming you can just take a file and delete it and upload a new file.
Exactly.
You can rewrite the file. Binary is easy to change, but that's not how the brain works. The brain has neurons. If it wants to reprogram something, let's say it wants to do math better. You want to learn math. That's your thing. There's a bunch of cells that are responsible for handling math, and there's other cells that handle other non-math things. Well, if you're going to learn math, you basically need to grow the math cells stronger so that they can take more of the current going through your head. They can steal more of it, so they can function better, and maybe even grow new connections so they can do their math better or more efficiently or more accurately or correctly, maybe even. They may have to grow. So you literally have to grow circuitry. We're doing it all on the CPU level. We got to grow the circuitry to do the program. The program is in the CPU when it comes to our head. It's not the case in the computer, which is why it's so much easier in the computer. But in a human, if I wanted to change my habits or something like that, something that I do instinctively, I literally have to kill some brain cells and regrow new ones in their place that are structured differently. You know how long that takes to grow the freaking cells? Forever. Yeah.
Well, we're on the same wavelength. And so basically, I guess what I can say is I've been both a computer programmer outside, I got a job working for SAIC or the observatory, but also an internal computer programmer where I know that we have the capability, as you said, to rewire our brain, but it takes constant, effort, constant awareness. You have to have some kind of a plan in order what you want to change.
Sure.
In terms of, let's say now, when we have our conversation with what's his name, it really doesn't bother me anymore. I just kind of laugh, basically, because he's never answered one question that I asked. Basically, if I told you 10 lies, after the 10th time, you would say, Richard, go fly a kite. Now,
exactly.
We have someone who's told 15,000 lies, and this was maybe a couple of months ago. 15,000 lies.
His answer was, But every politician lies. And that is somehow a good excuse, you know?
Yeah, yeah. Well, anyway,
If, if I lied to you more often than you lied to me, are we equally as bad?
yeah, yeah, yeah.
If I lied to you more than you lied to me, I'm probably
Uh,
worse than you are, you know?
well, and the thing, well, I guess the way I look at it, if I want this world to change, I have to change. I have to rewire my own circuits. I think every one of us were our own master chemists in terms of most of us are doing a lousy job. We get pissed off and angry, and, you know, I, I had this one job here in Kansas City, just lasted a real short time, and we were doing heart software for surgeons. So they were doing like a bypass, and they would ask them questions. This happened. They go on to this step. Oh, there's a mistake. So it would take them down the rabbit hole to hopefully to save that person's life. And I asked like the CEO of the company, hey, how come the Western medicine doesn't promote a preventative medicine? He goes, oh my gosh, they could never do that because nobody wants to take responsibility.
Mhm.
And and this has been my concept ever since I was 18 years old. The way I look at it, this is the only body you get. I don't know if anybody who got it traded while they were alive, it's the only
Yeah.
body you get. So these are kind of like the principles that I take. That's one reason why I think I've even been a software engineer for all that time, because I can take that experience and put it for myself, to consciously grow. Because I know if you're conscious or not, those neurons will keep on getting wired. You will, that subconscious will keep on running the show. The same old anger, same old issues, same old will keep on coming up. And people will say, poor me, why is this going on with me? Never wanting to change, never wanting to take responsibility, never even seeing that we're responsible for our own chemistry set inside.
Humans, that reminds me of something. Humans are kind of unique and a unique species on this planet for one reason. We have learned, most animals will adapt to the environment. Whatever the environment throws at them, they'll figure it out.
Yeah.
We're the exact opposite. We will change the environment so that it adapts to what we want. I mean, that's why do you think we talk about stopping the rain or starting the rain at will, things like that. Eventually we'll figure out how to cause it to rain. Animals just figure out, well, I'll just get wet and I'll dry. That's why they learn to shake their body so they can clear off the water.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Why not? Instead, we're like, why don't we figure out how to make it stop raining when we need to go outside so that we don't have to get wet and not have to worry about shaking our body. We're unique creatures in that instead of changing to adapt to whatever situation is, we will try to just change the damn situation. We're smart enough to know how to change it, or at least try.
Yeah, and in the way I look at it, we're sawing off the branch that we're sitting on. What sane creature would throw garbage in their living room? Basically, that's what humanity is doing. When a society is divorced, from nature, you have nothing but neurotics, and that's where we are, today. I think even.
I think. Okay, so you mean talking about like environmental?
Yeah.
Like greenhouses and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah. Everything science is saying.
Actually, I think if you'd asked anybody on the planet, most of us, probably a larger percentage than you would expect, will be like, yeah, I try to recycle. I try not to throw the garbage on the floor. On an individual basis, we're all probably pretty good at that.
Yeah, that's true.
Now, however, we don't act individually. I need to go buy a Coke. If I'm going to go, here's Dr. Pepper can again. I'm going to go buy a Dr. Pepper can. Well, who made the Dr. Pepper can? Some company. And that company, if they worried about not polluting the river with the extra sugar that they didn't need and killing the, if they worried about that, they'd go out of business. But down the street, the Coca-Cola company, who isn't worrying about it, they're doing just fine. So Darwin's theory works for economics too, just like it does for living creatures. It can work for economics. All the businesses that are more successful, regardless of whether they're right or wrong, will survive. And the ones that are not efficient, I guess, will die. That's business. That's capitalism is basically Darwin's theory of economics. Now, it doesn't make economic sense to worry about, well, let's keep the excess sugar from flowing into the river. Let's put them in canister. That gets too expensive. You go out of business quick in a hurry like that. So we might individually be great people, but when we put them together and make a company to do something, no one's going to be the guy in charge of saying, no, I'm sorry, but no one can put garbage here. There's too many other people to say, well, we're going to have to make this exception if we're going to get anywhere. And then after a while, you've made so many exceptions that you're just polluting the damn river.
Well, I remember a couple of years ago, I heard a thing on NPR, which I liked, and they're talking about chickens. So they're doing research on a 3-year study on chickens. And so they got all the chickens that were aggressive, they put into a group. Then they put all the mom and pop, the normal chickens, that would just, did what chickens do, have a good time. So anyway, after a 3-year period of time, all the aggressive chickens killed each other until finally there was no chickens. Then the other chickens, they were just like happy little chickens. After 3 years, they had more chicklets and they grew and they had life.
This sounds familiar.
And
hold on a second. I'm getting a call.
Okay.
Yes, I'm in the basement. I'm actually chatting with Richard online. I'll be up in a little bit. No, I'm chatting with Richard. Okay, sorry, bye.
So it's like, Darwin, Darwin mentioned more in that book about evolution on cooperation than survival of the fittest. Now, in our society, we take.
I think people misunderstand what he meant by fittest. Fittest, people think, oh, the strongest, the fastest. I can kick your butt, so I'm going to survive. No, it doesn't work that way. Fittest as in the most fit for the environment that it's in, the most efficient for what the situation is. If you look at all the animals on the planet, we are probably the weakest creature there is.
Yeah, I agree with that. Yeah.
Why are we? But we are enormously successful as a species. So successful that we have to kill each other in order to have a predator. Okay. Explain to me how that has anything to do with fitness.
Yeah, exactly.
Look at my awesome physique here. Does it look like I'm fit? As fitness is how an organism, everything involved in an organism. If I was to take the same humans and turn off the social aspect, we would die in a hurry.
Yeah, we would.
As a species, yeah. We would go extinct in a hurry. I should say, not die, but we would devolve quickly, like those zombie movies. I don't know if you've ever seen The Walking Dead. We would turn into that.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Because what makes us successful is that, okay, I can be great on my own. You can be great on your own. But we are nowhere near as great if I don't teach you what I've learned and you teach me what you've learned. Because it's not like I stole you anything from you. If you're, I don't know, I'm gonna just use money just 'cause it's easier. But if you're worth $10 and I'm worth $10, and you teach me something, now I'm worth 20, and I teach you something. Now you're worth 20. Well, we're now both worth $40 when we were worth 10 individually. We were worth 20 before, but now we're worth 40. I'm getting that math wrong, but whatever.
Yeah.
But if you multiply this by an entire civilization, my $10, now I'm worth $1 million, and you're worth $1 million. We're all worth $1 million. And it's not like we stole from each other. We're just teaching each other. And then I pass that on to my children. So now they don't have to start completely over.
Yeah.
You know, we're not going to have this conversation all over again. They're going to just read this and then add to it. So it's like interest now, you know. That's what makes us super successful. The animals can't do that. Chimpanzees are probably our next competitor. Maybe dolphins too. They're probably our next competitor when it comes to the level of intelligence. Why are they not as successful? Because they can't write it down and teach it to somebody else. Chimpanzees got the bonus of maybe learning sign language, but we have to teach it to them. That's cheating. But then they have to be taught to teach it to each other over the generations, which would be great. Maybe in a few million years, they'll become Planet of the Apes and maybe we'll have trouble, but it's not going to be that easy when you can't write it down. They don't have the mental facility to be able to write things down. And that's crucial. Why do you think nothing interesting happened on the planet until after what they call history and prehistory? Why is that such a turning point? Because we started writing it down. You know?
Exactly. Yeah. And this is one reason why I had this conversation, because you know, we have both different views of how to look at things. I kind of totally respect your area of physics. You know, that it's an area that I'm slowly diving into. Reading just for fun. For me, I love to constantly learn about things, especially things.
Remember, my new area is astronomy and astrophysics and astrobiology. So that's my new area. But I have plenty to talk about there too, if you want.
Okay. Oh, cool. Now I have plenty of. I know you're going to laugh at this, and tell me where my subconscious it resides, where it can bring up like that. But my brother and I always knew we didn't come from this earth. I felt like a stranger in a strange land from day one.
I'm from another planet too, so that's okay.
but my uncle Bill took us when we were 4 or 5 years to a Bob's Big Boy. This is a hamburger joint in California. They had these placemats, take me to your leader. So imagine we were only 4 or 5 years old. We put up these placemats, and my brother and I, we would laugh and laugh and laugh. And see, we're twins, so we had telecommunication going on, telepathy. Basically, we didn't start. People first thought we were kind of retarded because we didn't speak English. We had our own communication with each other. Anyway, make a long story short, we would laugh and laugh, knowing my Uncle Bill had no idea what we were laughing about. So, in the terms of where those kind of memories come from.
Wait, you're asking me where those memories come from?
Yeah. Do you think, I mean, do you think, that this is just a one-shot deal, that when it's over, the memories aren't, can there be a quantum computer that exists in the universe where everything is recorded? Now the mystics say yes. They don't call it a quantum computer, but they say that everything in the universe is kind of is recorded. What's your feeling about, even in terms of right now with computers?
I'm not sure well, it's kind of a complicated question, but I'm not sure everything in the universe can be recorded, because to record something, you need a media to store it on. And if you're going to store everything in the universe, you need something the size of the universe to record the universe. So you need a whole nother universe to record this one. And if you're going to record a second by second instance of what happened in the universe, you'll need one universe for every second that this one has existed. It's just not practical.
How about, well, scientists, here's another theory, just listen, I know this sounds quacky to you, but
it's okay.
Scientists talk about junk DNA. They say 93% is junk DNA. Some scientists, which most scientists are going to totally disagree, because if you think outside the box, you're fanatical, you're going to get lost. But they say that 93 of that percent of the junk DNA is multidimensional DNA. It exists there, but you can't see it.
No, they're just atoms. They're all in this dimension, I think. I'm not sure they're in another dimension.
Yeah. Good. Do me a favor and start doing some research. I kind of like for you to, I'm bringing up these ideas, and well, anyway, search for multidimensional DNA, and
if DNA were multidimensional, and I'm not going to say they're not. I mean, it is possible that there are more dimensions and DNA extends into it, but they extend into it just as much as non-DNA type material too. This Dr. Pepper can, again, sticks into the fourth dimension just as much as my DNA would. Nothing special there as far as that goes. There's nothing in that dimensional direction that's particularly unique. The fact that we can't see in that direction is another story, but I don't know. Einstein said there were 17 dimensions, so I don't know what to make of it. So,
yeah, but personally, well, this is just my being a computer programmer. If I wanted to hide, let's say, knowledge or data, and I want it to be placed in our DNA, and I wanted to make it kind of hard for someone to do. I mean, to utilize or to know about it, I would make junk DNA. Basically, because then you can have scientists, and those scientists are going to say, it's junk. There's no purpose behind it, And
it makes sense that if you've got a bunch of DNA, pieces of the DNA that basically do nothing for your makeup of your structure,
yeah,
then if they were useless, you can always swap them out with other useless stuff that's useless to the body anyway, that actually means something. And they're actually doing research on using DNA to store information. They already started this research, actually.
So then if that's the case, yeah, they're starting to do that. So what about there's some force that everyone has their entire DNA chain from day one embedded in their DNA. Not only this life, but let's just wait. I don't think a human being dies. The elements go back to Earth, but that essence, I don't know I don't think there's a place called heaven, where angels are singing. Basically, I think there's a quantum soup. That's what I call it, a cosmic soup. You can't take anything out of that soup. I think even the whole universe is a cosmic soup. That's the closest that I can get. So I don't think physically.
Think of a car. If we were all cars, we all have a driver.
Yeah.
Right. At the end of your car's lifespan, it's going to go bad. You have to throw it away and get another car or whatever, Your soul gets out of the car and gets into another car, or maybe just now you walk for the rest of the time or whatever, but we are all just cars.
Yeah.
What is the past? What is the driver? That's not something we've studied. I don't know if it's quantum. Quantum is just the basic, when you get down to the fundamental structure of things. But what's the thing? I don't know. I don't know what the soul would be made of, whatever. But I'm sure quantum could do the math for it. But I don't know. It's not. It's down. Remember my four guys, the four forces.
Yeah,
It
yeah.
would, the soul would not be among the four, which is why
Mhm.
we can't see it, because we can only detect things from these four. And uh, the soul, if it doesn't interact with any of these four, then we're never going to be able to see it. Not unless we use the fifth one. Here's the fifth one. If we
Mhm.
figure out how to use this one, then we'll start seeing ghosts and stuff, spirits and whatever. But until we figure this one out, it's just these four. And we only know about
Mhm.
these four. And if there's no way for these four to mess with this fifth one, some kind of interaction between the two, it's basically forget it. It's a separate, might as well be a different universe that just happens to be in the same place.
Mhm.
Um,
There's a guy named Guru Nanak. He's probably in the
yeah.
1400s.
I don't want to be, I have to get going pretty soon
Okay.
here.
All right. All right. Well, anyway, yeah.
I can end up going all night. So.
uh, but yeah, this has been yeah, definitely. I really enjoyed this. Yeah.
Yeah, if you know who was involved in this conversation would take a lot longer and we get a lot less discussed, I think.
But I'm glad that you're I can talk to you, and you can talk to me, and you know we may have different looks at it, but I don't get offended. I'm what I'm asking you questions. That's how I'm trying to get bounce back ideas, because it's hard to explain that internal phenomena inside. So that's why I would thought, well, good old George, you've been, studying physics for literally years. So,
Ever, yeah.
so
Yeah.
that it,
But I guess I could summarize before we hang up. I know you have a mystic concept behind your philosophy, and I have that opposite kind of point of view where there's no, it was just a bunch of machines operating in a huge, bigger machine. Um, what makes each of us special might be an extra add-on from outside, but beyond that, we're just a bunch of machines that are interacting as we were programmed to. It sounds dark and very unreligious, but I mean that's kind of the feeling that I have that describes the universe. Um, I don't
and
know. I know there's more to it,
mhm,
but but the thing is that let's say, for example, the God and the spirits that could embed in each of us. If we were to remove, if God decided to take all his spirits with him and leave the universe unspiritual, take everything out, we would never notice. We would still be doing everything we would normally be doing because our bodies are still going to act the way they have been acting all this time, because we're just mechanisms that operate a certain way, whether we have the spirit in us or not.
okay, and
Does
now
that?
I'm going to wrap up with my viewpoints here from the mystics.
Okay.
My viewpoint for a mystic is that a person is never alone. That the more you pay attention to the universe, it starts paying attention to you. Those quality, love, compassion, patience, and tolerance exist inside of us. It doesn't exist outside. And
I should I should throw in my shining light, I guess. Um, when I say you put a soul into a inanimate, no, I shouldn't say inanimate, a mechanism like a human body or whatever,
mhm,
it isn't going to stay there unless there's something that holds it. And the only way to hold it is if there's some sort of interaction. And remember my four and my one guy?
yeah,
If there was no way for these to communicate, no way for any physical interaction between some kind of intermediary nuclear particle, I'm going to be all physics here. If there was no way to do that, then you really can't put a soul into something and expect it to stay there. It might as well be two different universes, like I said. So if there is a spirit within each of us, there must be some kind of interaction between the physical world and the non-physical world. I'll use that word, even though it's probably not accurate.
yeah, no, that's totally accurate.
That
Yep.
that that keeps us bound until the body no longer needs it, and the spirit will say, "Oh yeah, I let go and I move on." let go of what? You have to have been holding on to something if you're going to let go of it. How can you hold on to something if you can't interact with it? So there must be some soft interaction, and that interaction will cause the stuff that you're talking about.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's, you know, the world of a mystic, that everyone is wired to. And the human body is perfectly wired for that. We have the chemistry set, you know, and we are using the chemistry set for our own, you know, self-destruction in this world. It's instead of being in the center of the hurricane, for some reason, humanity loves the swirling hurricane winds of the mind.
we are the hurricane.
Exactly, we are, and so that is what I am you know, talking about, is that there's an evolution where we can improve and discover, you know. So yeah, we should do this more often, you know.
Sure.
Yeah.
We should probably try to do it in person when this virus stuff is all
definitely.
done.
Oh,
Yeah.
who knows when that's going to happen? Oh my gosh.
I'm waiting for the second wave. We're not even done with the first one yet.
Yeah, yeah. You know, that's the thing. It's bad enough as it is, you know. But when you have people in the United States who don't even want to listen, you know, they're saying this is my freedom not to work. You know, that. Geez, it might be another 5 years. Who knows? You know.
What was it? Lenin, Vladimir Lenin, or not Stalin, Lenin from Russia. He said that you have the freedom to do what you want, but I have the freedom to shoot you for it. That was an expression I remember hearing him say, something like that.
Oh my gosh.
So, yeah, sure. You have the freedom to not wear that mask. You're also free to die from the disease too. So.
Really?
And I'm a big fan of Darwin. I say, go ahead, take off that mask. After a while, there won't be enough of you left.
Exactly.
The rest of us will be fine.
Yeah. So yeah, this is wonderful. You know, I love hearing both sides, you know, of the coin.
All right. I'll see you later then. I gotta go run upstairs.
Okay. All right. Say hi to your wife.
I will.
Okay.
Say hi to everybody there.
Okay. Bye.
All right. Take care.